follow-up questions about this section? I see Director Leonard.
So this is a little bit different. I looked over this. Been looking at this for the last couple of days, and we most definitely need a strategic plan, and that's all well and good. But what's been just sort of hanging over me is when we talk about the underpinning, which is our financial status, this just weighs heavily on my thinking. I have to be very honest. So I guess my first question is, or my assumption is that I know that the administrative leadership must be talking about the possible repercussions of the minute offer given to MPS through the state, and how is that going to possibly directly and negatively impact anything we try to do here? I think that has to be dealt with. We have to have that out in front for everybody to know and understand that.
Administration?
Madam Chair, members of the committee, yes, Director Leonard, the funding from the state will directly affect us. When we looked at the numbers, they are not measuring up to where they need to be. However, this work will move forward with the staff that we have in place. Yes, we're going to have to do some things differently, but we're prepared to do that. We're looking at how we can cut costs in various areas and what we can do to wrap support around schools and students. So to answer that question, yes, cost is a factor. The money did not come the way we intended from the state, but we are going to do what we need to do for our children.
Thank you. Any follow-up? All right. Administration, would you like to move on to the next section, please?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, no.
Yeah, because this is very, very interesting, and I'll thank you.
It's like one of those two will work. Sometimes I grab one, I'm like, well, that one doesn't.
Thank you. So that was page 23.
Oh, is that enrollment decline?
Yeah, page 23.
Yep, that's right.
Enrollment decline. And you said managed.
Yeah, I call that managed decline.
Okay. Okay.
And really, it's what is the long-term vision of the district? Is it managed decline, or is it turnaround and growth?
Okay.
You know what I mean?
It is long. Is it okay if I write this down?
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. No, for sure.
Okay. Because I do want to work on, so I know that we've been talking about 360 evaluation and these sessions, and I definitely want to be able to formulate some questions that will evoke, I guess, other thoughts or actions by the board. These are questions we're not answering. We're not asking and not being answered.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And I think it's absolutely reasonable for you to have high expectations of the guy making $250,000.
Oh yeah, because I'm getting hell about that now. People are pissed about the 4.7% raise.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just like, I wasn't there.
That's right. Check the record.
Right.
Wasn't there.
And they're like, you should have been there. I'm like, I'm tired of being the only no.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. I cannot imagine the island
Yeah.
that has to feel like.
Internally, externally, people are just like, oh, okay, you're kind of our champ. But I'm like, shit, help. Show up.
Yeah.
Vote. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Okay.
No,
so this
I think
is
that's
this
a
is
reasonable
good.
ask.
Yeah. Okay.
Last thing that I did. I'm going to skip this part for a second. If we have time, how much time do you have?
I'm open.
Are you
I'm
sure?
Open. Yep,
okay, all right, very good.
Yep.
I want to be
This
very
is important.
respectful. Okay, yep. If at any point you're like, hey, I've hit the saturation point too, you can say that too. That's okay. This is sometimes kind of heady stuff.
It is, but if I'm gonna do my job, I gotta learn it.
Yeah, and don't hesitate at all to give me some feedback too of like, hey, this information may be presented in another way or in some summary document. I would love to know the best way to educate.
Yeah.
And future board members that come on that are mission aligned but are have the real challenges that you know exist.
Yeah.
How
Oh,
can
yeah.
how can I
Yep.
help them get up to speed as quickly as I can too?
Yeah, and that's something that we were talking about. We talked about in Denver. How can
Oh,
we
yeah.
onboard and create more training and like
Yes.
a smooth transition? I mean, nothing is smooth about a budget this big, but
That's
there's
right.
there's work that could be done. So no, I'd be open to hear your thoughts because
Okay.
there is a slate that is going to be running, and I feel very confident about the slate. But I also want for everyone to just have the tools to do right.
Yes.
Yeah, and be effective. Yeah.
Absolutely. That makes total sense.
Yeah.
One of the things that, and I know you've heard this, and I want to make sure you have the familiarity because it's foundational for one of the things that I identified in the budget.
Okay.
And yeah, so the page number is 2-33.
Okay. 2-33 revenue limits.
Yes, exactly. It's exactly
Okay.
right.
Okay.
And the important thing to understand about the revenue limits is that the resources, they come either from general state aid
Mhm.
or from local property taxes. And I'm sure you're familiar with that.
Yeah,
Those are
yeah.
the two buckets. And here's the most critical part to understand here. If general aid funding is provided from the state,
Mhm.
the property tax levy may be reduced by a corresponding amount. So as the state aid goes up, right, we still have like the overall limit.
Mhm. Mhm.
But if state aid goes up, then hey, good news, local taxpayers,
You get.
you get a reduction in your, because the state's now fronting us more money.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
Now, if general funding is reduced, school boards have the authority to backfill, is the term they use here, the aid reduction by increasing property taxes on the local citizenry.
Ooh. Okay.
Okay, so we're just going to put a pin in that fact for a moment now. It
Okay.
basically just says, if state aid is reduced,
Okay.
a local board can decide to make up whatever difference is now lost
Mhm.
by putting it on the backs of the taxpayers. That's the takeaway here.
Okay.
And the implications of that are going to be apparent in just a couple of moments.
Okay. Okay.
Do you have any questions on that?
Yeah. So.
Please, please.
I'm thinking, what's the limit for state aid? What's
So-
the ceiling?
Yeah, it's calculated annually, and it's
Okay.
essentially based entirely on our enrollment.
Enrollment.
Basically. There's
Okay.
other sort of sweeteners in terms of computer aid, handicap aids, some other things, but the lion's share is exclusively enrollment.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
Yep,
Okay.
that's exactly right.
Okay.
Okay, so having walked through that, and this is just a sort of,
An example.
graphical representation of it. So we
Okay.
have the revenue limit.
Mhm.
Once you take away what all the state decides to give us, that's how much we can then levy.
Okay.
And of
okay.
course, the formula then is, if this amount goes down,
Yeah.
but the revenue limit stays the same,
Mhm.
you as a board can say, well, I'm gonna raise the property tax limit, or the
Okay.
property tax levy to make up for it.
Okay.
That's
okay.
the key takeaway there.
Okay.
Okay, so, having gone through that, this is one other detail I just want to bring to our attention, and its implications will make sense in a moment.
Okay. Okay. 239.
Yep.
Okay.
And it's unassigned fund balance, if you want to
Okay.
take a note next to that.
Okay. Okay.
And what this says is that the use by the board, or the administration, of unassigned fund balance, it requires that 2/3 supermajority, right? It's a higher vote majority that's required in order to spend unassigned fund balance.
So that 20-something million.
Yeah, you're very close. You're gonna.
Okay.
It's related. Yeah,
Okay,
you have.
okay, I'm
No, your
jumping.
instincts. No. Your instincts are very good.
Okay.
No. Seriously, that is right on point. But you're gonna see how it's related to that, but it's slightly
Okay,
different.
okay.
So yes, and I draw attention to that here because from a policy consideration again, you as the board or the administration require a higher threshold in order to spend dollars out of the fund. But as you will probably guess, there's little to no guidance about how money goes in and who has the authority and under what approval is required in order to put money in. There's a very high threshold to get money out, 2/3 majority vote of the board, but how does it get in? Who makes that call? When do they make that call? And what is the board's input on making that call? Those are policy considerations, and quite frankly, there's no guidance on that right now. And
Yeah.
the impact of that between the two things we just discussed, we'll see momentarily.
Okay.
All right. Okay, so we brought attention to that. So here is where, remember how we talked about the managed decline?
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe I'm being petty by drawing attention to what the administration decides to put pen to paper on in every budget book.
Mm-hmm.
So if you read page 310,
310. Okay.
under their long-term financial plan,
Okay. Okay.
I'm just going to read it out loud, and you can tell me, do these two statements line up or not?
Okay.
By providing a variety of quality educational environments, being sensitive to the demand that families are demonstrating in their choices, MPS intends to maintain or grow its enrollment. Well, then show me an enrollment projection that demonstrates this. Otherwise, you can't have it both ways. You can't say, I'm going to maintain or grow our enrollment, and then show me a projection that says it declines from here to eternity, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you shouldn't be able to get away with that.
No,
And
I
again,
agree.
Oh, and
I agree.
to be sure, I please don't receive anything I'm saying as like I'm setting this
Yeah,
at your
no,
feet.
No. This is important information. I don't know if you were in the executive session where I kind of like stormed out.
Oh no, I know. It was related to that Quarles and Brady and the
Yeah, and
the
Holy Redeemer.
Holy Redeemer, yes.
And I was pissed, and I'm just like, we demand transparency, accountability from
Yes.
charters and choice, and we say they are the enemies, and we're asking for finances and enrollment plans and what they're
all
doing,
day.
all of that.
Yes.
But as a public entity, we're not. And then my conversation with Bob Peterson was, you want me to have these private conversations. I'm an elected official. I think it will serve us best if we operate with that high level of transparency.
Absolutely. I understand the perspective that is any
Yeah.
bad news
Yeah.
is ammunition for people to take pot shots at us. However, you as the board demonstrating hey, I was elected, I'm coming in, here's what I'm finding, here's what I'm cleaning up. I understand our critics are going to take pot shots at us no matter what.
Yep.
But by taking that approach, you now have the benefit of everyone else is open-minded.
Yes.
Or an MPS supporter saying like, oh, okay, I can get behind
I can
this
get
board.
behind this.
They are working to improve it.
There you have it. And that's all I want to do.
I see you doing it. Believe me.
Yeah, but it's like I'm the enemy.
Right? You're like, how did I become the?
And I'm a firm believer in if you acknowledge it, if you name it, and then you
Yes.
tell people like we acknowledge where we are, what's happening, what's not happening. This is our plan. We invite you to engage. I think we're doing more of a disservice, and we're hurting obviously the district more.
Oh, I agree.
By hiding. Yeah.
I absolutely agree.
And I do understand too, deliverance is important. How you do it.
For sure.
Yeah. So this isn't any information for opt-in or hey reporters, I got this information. But no, as a collective.
Yeah.
Maybe through a strategic planning session that's public, and let the media run with it. But these are our issues. This is our plans in the next 3 to 5 years. I don't know. I don't know yet. But I hate the secrets.
Yeah,
the hypocrisy.
I do too. And like I said, it's been a real challenge as board policy obligates me to be as transparent as any other governance arm, right?
Oh yeah. No, I know.
And that's why I said, I'm like, I gotta give it to Director Carr because I know we see eye to eye on the transparency question, but to your point of like, who do I trust and who's going to sort of,
Yeah.
I need to make sure when I make those moves forward.
Yeah.
So anyway.
No, I definitely have your back, and I say
really
use me.
appreciate that.
Yeah, because we're not. It's people like us who are going to be the ones that are left to clean up messes and.
That's right.
Yeah, and if we don't say it, then it's like, well, you knew this and you knew that.
Yes.
I don't want that.
No.
I don't want that.
I agree, because then it undercuts your platform to do improvements later. I totally agree with that.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay. Now this is where kind of the rubber begins to hit the road.
Okay.
So on page 312,
Mm-hmm.
what I'm going to draw attention to here is
School
the
operations.
school operations. Yep, that's right. And this is the fund balance chart.
Okay. Okay.
And what you can see here is that the fund balance total, in 1819, the actual amount was 13. Went up a couple million in 20. But all of a sudden it went up $33 million between FY20 and FY21.
20, how many? 33?
Yeah, it ends up with the total nets, ins and outs. You'll see the amount that basically was contributed in a moment. But yeah,
Okay.
you can see it went from 16.8 to 49.3.
Okay. Wow. Okay.
Now, if you simply read a chart in a 900-page document, you're like, okay, well, so let's talk about what does this mean?
Mm-hmm.
You'll recall that for the FY20 budget, the board approved, hey, for every dollar that's coming in, admin, you're telling me you're going to spend it in all of these ways.
Mm-hmm.
At no time in that 20 budget was the board said, oh, hey, I plan on not spending $35 million.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to put it into fund balance. That was never part of the discussion. It doesn't appear anywhere in the budget.
Nope.
And so, right out of the gate, when we talk about budget to actual, if the admin says I'm going to spend all the money this way, and they don't spend 30 million of it in a way they said they were going to, what type of accountability? Because to your point, if a charter school deviates from a budget by 10%, by just 10%, that's what all the contract language is.
Yep.
Hey, stop the bus. You need to
Yep.
tell us what you're going to do,
Yep.
what the impact is, all those things. But
Yep.
are we asking that of the admin currently?
No.
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 Wow.
Now I'm going to roll it back to those two things I said let's put a pin in for a moment.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
By not spending $35 million, by just putting it into fund balance,
Mm-hmm.
that reduces the state aid in the next year by that amount. The state, like every other government agency, says, if you're not going to spend the money I give you,
Give it back.
I'm not
Or-
going to give it to you
yeah.
going forward.
Okay.
Is
Okay.
the net effect.
Mm-hmm.
Now, here's the ultimate implication of that. Under the revenue limit, so here's the total dollar amount. We get state aid up to this point,
Yeah.
right? And then you as a board get to say, I'm going to tax the local taxpayers on the levy to make up the difference.
Yeah.
Okay. So if in the next year the state says, well, you didn't spend 35 million of it, so I'm now going to take 35 million off the top.
Mm-hmm.
You now, as the board, are left in a sort of precarious position.
Mm-hmm.
You can do one of two things by the time you receive this, and the damage is, well, I don't want to say the damage, but your ability to influence this outcome is now gone.
Yep. Yep.
That fiscal
Because
period is closed.
Closed. Yep.
And this is the first you're finding out about this in a budget document, right? And it's well after the fact. You are left with two options when this is presented to you.
Tax.
I'm now going to raise property taxes by 30-some million dollars on top of the 87 million referendum you just gave us. Or you as the board can say, I'm going to leave our taxpayers harmless,
Mm-hmm.
and now I'm going to cut $35 million out of this budget. It is as little, it is as much a no-win situation to put the board into as you
Yeah.
can possibly put them into.
Yep. Yep.
Now, here's the other thing. This is so removed from the conversation. You as the board and even the public at this time don't even know that that's what's happened. Because this $30 million tax lift has already been placed on them. It's already been done. It could be amended in the October adjustment if we wanted to, but even then, your conversation is one of two things. I cut $35 million from the budget,
Yep.
right? Or taxpayers, sorry, I'm going to need another $35 million from you.
And that, wow.
And because
Wow.
of the complexity of this document,
Mhm.
right? And other board members have commented on that too.
Mm-hmm.
No one is aware that that's what's taking place. Even our watchdog constituencies, right? And there are several of them. They don't even know that that's what has happened. Some of it is masked by the fact that when people look at their property tax bill, right, we're always getting usually the same or less
Yeah.
because we have the declining enrollment.
Yeah.
Our
Yeah.
revenue limit is always sort of capping us. We're taking a haircut every time, right? But the fact of the matter is, whatever amount we're levying, it's $35 million more than it had to be. Or at a minimum, it's $35 million more than the public had the input to discuss, or the board even had any meaningful opportunity to change direction on. Do you have
That's
any
heavy.
questions? Yeah, I know.
That is heavy.
I know. And again, from a policy consideration, remember we said it takes a 2/3 vote to spend the money that's in here.
Yep.
But what precisely is the process and approval method that gets money in here? Because you as a board did not approve this.
Oh, wow. Yep.
You didn't
Yeah.
say, hey, don't spend $35 million and just shovel it away, and then after the fact obligate me to raise $35 million on the taxpayers. You had no input on this, neither did the public. The
This is-
admin got to, this seems like a good idea.
So what could be their rationale for putting that in there and then not spending? Like, what?
There is some legitimate benefit to having a fund balance, just like in your, like in a checking account, right?
Yeah,
Like,
a contingency fund.
Yeah,
kinda.
it's tough to manage your cash flow, right? When all you ever have is like a $5 balance in your checking account, right? It doesn't give you a lot of buffer for
Not at all.
something coming in. That is essentially what our fund balance is. The recommendation that like the Government Finance Officers Association and like WASB and other people who weigh in on financial matters, they recommend that you have a certain level of fund balance. It's reasonable to have it.
Yeah.
However, the way in which it gets in there, its impact to taxpayers, and your opportunity as an elected official to weigh in on that conversation, non-existent.
Null and void. Yep.
And that, from my perspective, as the person who's to make sure that you are fully informed, charged with fiscal transparency, and quite frankly, as a taxpayer of Milwaukee, that concerns me to no end.
Oh yeah, no, I'm a tax. Like I
I'm
have
all those
properties.
projects.
Yeah, and
Exactly.
my dad.
Exactly.
Yeah, and yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is a policy.
Yes. Yep.
All of this.
Yes.
is policy. Interesting. I would love to work on these.
Yeah, and I think you will have some allies.
On the board.
Yes, I
Oh
really do.
yeah. No, I Director Herndon is a numbers person. I believe she would be an ally. I believe any of them would, depending on how I present it. Maybe not Bob.
Sure.
Depending on, like, if this is a private conversation, or
Right.
maybe I reach out to him in advance and say, hey, this is what I'm working on. But he's not, in it.
He's a real not. He does not want to rock any boat.
He doesn't.
That's his leadership style.
Oh
Right?
yeah, that is not. I don't understand that as a board. I understand it and I don't.
Right.
Yeah.
Time and a place
Time and a place.
as a tactic, but you can't do that all day, every day.
No, you can not now.
Uh-uh.
Not with all that is at stake. I definitely see many allies. I would just have to present it in the right way.
Yes.
Yeah. Would you like? What were your thoughts about how to propose or present this? I know you said you would not put this in a memo, or you haven't put it in a
I
memo.
haven't.
Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
There's a couple different ways we can go about this.
Okay.
You know, some of them are like, and I would start from here, as
Mhm.
collaborative as they can be, even with the administration, to say,
Mhm.
you know, because I'm debating maybe even doing 2x2s.
Yeah,
Right? Just
yeah.
like you had a budget 2x2s,
Mhm.
I might just call an OAE 2x2 and walk through all of these things. Not
Okay.
to necessarily put the admin on blast,
Yeah.
though,
So
you know.
help board members be more effective, if
Yes.
nothing else. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And to let the administration know too, like, obviously you have this much autonomy currently, but it's producing these scenarios, and from my perspective, that's an uncomfortable spot for board members.
Yeah.
Admin, can you understand that?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then here are, I think, the policy questions that need some answers.
Mhm.
That's the most collaborative way it can be done.
Okay.
But I haven't fully sorted it out either, because at this point, to be quite honest with you, I was trying to get a little bit of a temperature check on the board members to see how close, how empowered is this office currently really to do this. Because I'm happy to be the trailblazer. I will always have in my defense, board, the policy language you gave us directs me to do precisely this. If you don't want me to do it, change the policy language.
Oh yeah.
But
Yeah.
at least
yeah.
that's in my defense.
Yeah. No, I agree. I can't speak entirely on that. I think, I know that there were some concerns, and that was one of the reasons why I asked the question that I asked when we were in the executive session about your separate counsel.
Yes.
Yeah, and so I don't talk with them much, and I get calls here and there. I don't even really reach out like that, but I know there were some concerns about efficiency, and I guess just checks and balances. And that was one of the reasons why I asked the questions, because I had a conversation with Dr. Mann.
Yeah.
And I was just like, this doesn't fall on Matt. It was presented initially in a way. I was like, oh, this was negligence from OAE. And it's like, yeah, no, this was policy, maybe a policy that needs to be rewritten or revisited.
Yes.
But then the long-term issue is what can we do to ensure that this does not occur again, so that you won't be in that position where you are being summoned into court or subpoenaed to speak on things that is a conflict, or however that process goes. So I know that was a conversation. I don't know how people feel about that. But I think it ended well. And I think it was a decision that only made sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I want to say too, I so much appreciate the board support on that, because it was absolutely killing my ability to move any other work that we were doing, to be honest with you.
No, that makes sense. It makes sense. Yeah. So I don't know. I think whatever you feel as a board member, of course, I want to write this policy.
Yeah, sure.
And I want to be a part of the discussions, because one, it demonstrates my learning process selfishly. But it also demonstrates just calling things out. As board members, we have to have an eye for this, and it speaks to one of my broader concerns is what services and supports do we have, or that we're putting into place for new board members to come in and learn this collectively. Because you're always available, and it's not to say a group of us can't meet with you. You have to call a public or a walk-in quorum.
Oh, right. Yep.
But is there something that can be done? And I think the bigger message to state legislators, like the limitations that we have in meeting and conducting business and learning, like it's just so many angles.
Yeah, it makes it really tough to.
It's difficult. It's difficult because you've always made yourself available for this. I remember the very first budget. I remember this one. And you've always made yourself available. But as board members, we don't know what to ask. We don't know what to
I
look for. And
know.
even when you and your expert position, your position of expertise, it's like, shit, we already voted.
Oh, right.
Things have already occurred. Like, how do we hold ourselves accountable and operate with transparency and ensure the public that we are working diligently to ensure this doesn't occur again?
Right, exactly. Yeah, I do see some potential paths forward, and subsequent to this, I'll be happy to collaborate with you on
Yeah, I'd
how
love to
we
collaborate.
can-
Yeah.
Oh, no, and I mean that sincerely.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was one aspect related to budget to actual. Again.
Okay.
All right, the next one I'm going to bring to your attention here. So, just like in that chart where I said, hey, here's this fund balance number that went up from 19 something to 40 something. So this is the other place that it would have been available to a discerning eye, right, to observe that. So here is the school operations fund. This is just a 5-year projection. But what you also see then is what the actual amount was. And so you can see at the end of FY21, there was basically $32.5 million that they just didn't spend. And so that unspent money basically just goes right into fund balance, absent any other movement of the dollars. And so that's the other place that this, and so again, right, in a 900-page document, there's only 2 pages, and how would you know to find this? You
Right.
can't.
Yeah.
And that's why we want to have these policies, so that the visibility and the awareness is much sooner in any process going forward.
Wow. Yeah, that's something to note. Of all of the, and that's the 32.5 that goes into fund balance.
That's right.
That's then not using that's then not used. So then we have to basically cut the next year's state aid down
The
by
state will
30,
cut it for
or
us.
they will cut it for
Exactly.
us by 32.5.
That's right.
And we're crying for more money.
Yeah, you are seeing the big picture. Yes. Yes, that is the
Yeah.
implication.
Yeah.
And it's not a great one, unfortunately. Here's the thing. Like I said, it is very reasonable for a government agency to hold fund balance. Like I said, it does the cash flow. I think you're familiar. They do it annually. But we have this approval that the board does. They issue a resolution to the city council. It allows them to do borrowing
Yep.
of up to $250 million. And they're called the RANs, the Revenue Anticipation Notes. And basically what it says is like, well, we as a district on July 1st, when we start our fiscal year, we have expenses. We have payroll,
Yeah.
we have debt obligations, those
Yeah.
things. But we actually don't get the revenue from the state for another couple of months.
Yep. So we need it from the city.
Yeah, so if they can, on a short-term borrowing basis, lend us some money, that'd be great. Now, the reason we have to ask for that is because we essentially had, at least before here, and even in the grand scheme of things, we have no fund balance. We don't have any of that float, just like in your checking account, right? It's like,
Yep.
it went to zero, there's nothing left. Now, here's the thing. Every time we do that borrowing, taxpayers pay the interest cost on that too.
Woo.
It's not a lot, but these are the impacts of these financial considerations.
I have a question.
Yes, please.
What's the average, or what is a safe amount to put in the fund balance, and understanding that it's needed, but maybe not so much, because it will hurt us if we don't, or given that we won't use it? Yeah.
Right. So the recommendation from, like I said, GFOA and other places.
GFOA.
Yep. And that stands for the Government
Finance.
Officers
Okay.
Association.
Okay.
In fact, they give us a nice little award annually.
Okay.
I think it's the GFOA. Oh no, I guess it's a different agency. But anyway, but yeah, their recommendation is anywhere from 10 to 15%.
Okay.
Or
Uh,
another way to look at it is somewhere between 2 to 3 months worth of actual operating expense.
oh,
If you
okay.
have that kind of a threshold,
Okay.
that's a good part to be.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay.
Now, here's the thing, Director Carr, and I've said this to others before you were on the board, that the COVID circumstance that we all fell into
Mm-hmm.
provided us and every other agency in the state of Wisconsin a really unique opportunity to have a fund balance conversation. All the other local agencies who also get state aid
Mhm.
are in the same boat we're in,
Mhm.
right? If they don't spend the money they get from the state gives them less, and then they do. It would have been a perfect time. I don't know if the window's still open on it or not, to go to the state and say, hey, can we have a hold harmless provision that allows us to say, hey, COVID came, we ended up burning some dollars, even though we've gotten nearly $1 billion in ESSER, but
Yep.
that's a separate conversation,
Okay.
to say, hey, we want to be financial stewards. We want to have recommended fund balances, but we burn through a lot. Can we put the money, state, that you've given us into fund balance, but have you recognize that as an expense for the next year or two, right? Because us and every other local
Yeah.
agency has been taking it on the chin from all the things that have gone south because of COVID.
Yeah. Yeah.
It'd be great if you could just say, hey, get yourselves up to some reasonable fund balance
Mm-hmm.
and allow us to do that in a way that doesn't reduce our funding from you in the next years.
Yeah.
I think it was a real missed opportunity. And like I said, maybe the window's still open to have our lobbyists,
Do we have one?
Mr. Thiel, Mr. Christopher Thiel,
Yeah, because I heard he's like a joke in the state.
I don't know I honestly don't know how many doors his presence allows us to get into.
I don't think a lot, especially the fact that he's the godson of the former union president, because everybody knows he's Bob Peterson's godson. But I've been told that
okay.
he is not MPS champ in the state.
I'll say this, and I'm not trying to throw him under the bus,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
if you were to take a look at the legislative agenda
Yeah.
that is approved annually,
Oh yeah.
and then compare that to any recent year's worth of legislative wins,
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
don't think we have any.
We have none. We have none. That is, I follow that. I actually talk a lot with Dr. Lakeisha Myers.
I know
and-
the name.
Yeah, she's a state representative. I speak with her a lot, and she's been a supporter, a strong advocate for public schools. And she's in the assembly, and she's just like, Chris Hill is a joke.
Oh,
MPS has
man.
no champion here, and she's like,
Are you
it's an
serious?
embarrassment. Yeah. She definitely, and she's gone on record saying that. She's just like, MPS needs another lobbyist. They often talk about Caesar Simpson.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, but she's like, MPS is not winning in the state because you don't have a strong representative that's here advocating for the needs of MPS children, to the point where and this is totally confidential.
Absolutely.
Everything. Senator Taylor has been meeting with Posley to talk about identifying another lobbyist, because she's like, the Republicans, the state legislators that's in control, would not be as aggressive if there was a more effective champion.
Oh, I have to be. I believe that. That's got to be a.
And they're gonna try anyways. Like, they want our buildings.
Oh,
they want so much. So their agenda, I don't think, will stop. But I think there are some opportunities to win.
I agree. Even in the climate,
Mm-hmm.
if you're
Oh, yeah.
smart and strategic, I think there are still wins left on the landscape. I agree.
And what's crazy is one of the authors of the co-authors of the bill to basically break MPS up. What's on what's in the works now? She loves Dr. Posley, and she's just like, he will not meet with me because he does what the unions and Bob Peterson tells him. She's like, I've tried. Alberta, darling. I've tried to get him to meet with us. She said he knows that I was one of his biggest supporters as a principal and even in other administrative roles that he's held here. She's like, I want to see him win,
See him
but
succeed, yeah.
but I'm not gonna keep playing. I'm not gonna keep playing the game. And in her words, not mine, she's like, I refuse to keep trying to make amends with or collaborate with the union's bitch.
Wow.
Yeah, and it was exact words. Exact words.
Boy,
And
that
it's
is
like,
a candid
yeah,
assessment.
yeah. And she's just like, her, her and numerous other people are just like, they're disappointed. They are very disappointed, and so they're going to take matters into their own hands.
Yeah, clearly, yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, with the
yeah.
legislative tools available to them.
Oh yeah. And we'll see how November works. But I mean, it's not just Governor Evers. We have to get to stay in office. We need Johnson out. Like, we can't lose anymore.
Yeah.
People don't understand.
Yeah.
And I'm learning it. And I was a staffer there, and I'm still learning. But I say all of that to say that would have been fair if we had that champion. And I honestly don't think that the window is closed. It's just who is it gonna be?
Yeah, right. And here's the thing, I've had this conversation with Mr. Thiel about this very topic at least 3 times. I said, hey, it will not be only us making the ask. Every other municipality, the city,
Yeah.
I mean, Rhinelander, pick your,
Oh yeah.
they'll all be like, yes, can we just have a hold
Can
harmless,
we?
just for 2
Yeah,
years, 3 years,
yeah.
whatever it is.
Yeah.
And the state would not bat an eye at that. I'm sure of it.
I don't believe they would. I honestly don't. I don't. But you have to have someone who's willing to put in that work.
I think you're right. There's some question about that.
Yeah, and I don't deny that at all. Like, I honestly believe that, and I don't know him personally. I've not had any issues with him. I know there's like a wall because that's their side. I'm over here.
Yeah, sure.
But I don't think that he's the strongest champion, and I get so frustrated when I hear the reports because it's like a rebel, like it's getting you all worked up and angry at state legislators, and it's like, what are the factors in between that ultimately leads to the buildup or leads to the results that you're reporting out on? Like, it's other things that we're not doing.
I'm glad you said that because it has not always been Mr. Thiel's demeanor in front of the board to basically play to the crowd and to throw the state legislators under the bus. He is now, in years past, that was not what he did.
Yeah, no, I heard.
But recently,
recently,
you're right, he is in front of the board playing to the crowd, and I'll be honest with you, I think that